Welcome to Minor League Cricket Live 2025. I'm Nate Hayes. Amin Patel can't be with us today. He's doing commentary someplace else. But I'm joined today by West Division commentator and connoisseur, Joe Hickey. Joe, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, the West Division, a lot of flavors to sample. Yeah, absolutely. And I've been bellying up to the buffet, that's for sure.
Oh, well, you had 5 games this week that you were involved in, and all of them had context getting into the weekend. We're going to come back to those in a minute. Along with the West, one other division has their playoff picture sorted out, and that's the East Division. And coming into week 4, the big question was who's going to finish first. The Cavaliers would need to win both of their games, and the undefeated Stallions would need to lose at least 2 of their final 4 for the Cavaliers to have a chance to get first placed. We wouldn't have to wait long to find out how that would go, as the Stallions would face the New York City Titans to start week 4 on Thursday. The Titans would put up a solid 163 runs for 5 in the first innings after winning the toss. And after a couple of wickets in the death during the chase, the Stallions would need 14 in the final over to preserve their undefeated season. It would come down to Ramanveer Dalawal, who would score 2, 2, 2, 6, and 2 to deliver for the Stallions, and they would stay alive. Their hopes of having an undefeated season would stay alive. The Titans would have a chance, however, for revenge on Friday, but they'd fall well short by 30 runs as the Stallions bowlers took 9 wickets in the chase to defend 155. New Jersey would face the Philadelphians on Saturday at New York Ovals, and a win would secure first position for the Stallions before the Cavaliers could even play a game. Philly won the toss and sent New Jersey in to bat first. Jesse Singh would enter with the Stallions at 107 for 4 on the final ball of the 17th over and blast 45 from just 15 runs to give the Stallions 163 runs. Vishal Reddy's 101 from 66 for the Philadelphians wouldn't be enough to get Philly over the line, and the Stallions would win by 23 runs, and they would preserve that first place position heading into the Super 8s, as well as their undefeated season. The Cavaliers would do their part for whatever it was worth it by defeating the Yorkers twice on Saturday by 10 wickets and on Sunday by 5 wickets, and that would mean no upsets this season for the Manhattan Yorkers, but the Stallions would get first position. On Sunday, the only question left was would the Stallions remain undefeated, and they would beat the New England Eagles on Sunday, winning by 25 runs thanks to Sai Mukamala and Sai Sudan's 57 runs, 6th wicket partnership to recover from 61 for 5 in the 10th over to set a defendable total of 136 for 7, which they would defend, and they would remain undefeated. So in the East, the big story is the New Jersey Stallions once again in the Super 8 or in the playoffs, and just behind them, New Jersey Somerset Cavaliers. And these two teams are just always in the hunt. I'm really excited, Joe, to see if the New Jersey Stallions can bounce back from that difficult Super 8 that they had last season, where it didn't seem like they had quite enough fast bowling, which is strange. This year, it's going to be in Morrisville, and I think this team looks a little bit more suited for the Morrisville wicket.
No, I think it's going to be a great opportunity here. Both of these teams have made a final before, and in particular, the Stallions are going to have really happy memories of Morrisville back in 21, up to a point, obviously, but of winning that Atlantic Conference championship. It's the first undefeated team we've ever had that's made it all the way through full points. Kingsman last year got, they had the 1-0 result, so they weren't able to quite pull off the 8 for 8. But this year 10 for 10, and now you're just excited, as I think we are for all of these great teams that have dominated divisions, to see what they do when you put them head to head.
Yeah, and this Stallions team, winning, 70, I think 78 or 79% of their games throughout their entire history. Interestingly enough, there in the East, in the 5 years that the Stallions have been around, that minor league cricket's been around, the Stallions have only had one no result. You talked about the Kingsmen last season falling one no result shy of being undefeated. But the Stallions, in all of the 5 seasons, only one no result. So they really, they had a good chance to eventually get the undefeated season. They got it this year. In the South, in the Atlantic, the Fire would hand the Baltimore Royals their first loss of the season, but the Royals would answer with a win of their own over the Fire. And now it's the Atlanta Fire versus the Atlanta Lightning for 2 games this Friday and Saturday to determine who takes the trip to Morrisville with the Baltimore Royals for the Super 8 positions in the South. Now, once again, it's in Morrisville this year. We've never had an Atlantic team win in four finals so far in minor league cricket. We've never had an Atlantic Conference team win. Baltimore looks really, really good. Atlanta Fire looks really good. Atlanta Lightning looks very, very capable. I think the edge goes to Atlanta Fire heading into the weekend, since they did beat Baltimore once. But what are your thoughts? Do you have any thoughts about these two teams, or these three teams?
I mean, looking at the way that Baltimore responded, in particular to getting punched in the mouth, they haven't had to play a lot of close games. By and large, had had a pretty easy time of it. Even the 1-0 result was after bowling out Morrisville for I think 63, and then the rains came and they never got a chance to actually chase it. Like they just looked so dominant. So to see Atlanta, put them through their paces, they get that one loss on their record, and then to come back the next day and bowl out that lineup for 83, just unreal as a response to that. So, Atlanta generally has not looked terribly weak. I think it's the first time we've seen them really get challenged by a bowling lineup. I think, yeah, the question is going to be whether the Lightning have enough to keep them in check, either to allow them to protect a total or allow them to stay within range to chase something next weekend. Because Lightning are going to have to win both of those. They're lucky that they took care of business against Morrisville, because if it had come down to net run rate, that was a wrap. Atlanta, I think, is at plus 2.5 right now. And we're at plus 3 before the Baltimore Royals beat them as soundly as they did. So it would have taken some massive victories. Now you're in this situation where it's kind of like a 3-game series. You've lost game one, but you take those last two, win a couple of eliminators, and the Lightning could be right there in Morrisville. And what a crazy thing that would be for a team that was undefeated until Sunday to not make the playoffs. So lots to look forward to Friday and Saturday from Rydell.
Yeah, that would be absolutely bananas if Atlanta Fire missed out here. Now, Atlanta Fire, if they win two games, they move to 18 points, which would put them in first place in the South Division, which would be pretty impressive as well. Imagine the Baltimore Royals as dominant as they've looked. And one of these two teams, well, someone's going to have to finish in second place in this division. Like I said, it looks like the Atlanta Fire have the edge right now. But like you said, Atlanta Lightning could pull off something special here and win two games against their rival. Funny Simhadri, if he has anything to say about it, he might make a huge difference. We saw him get his 100th wicket after a week after Sarvjit Lada got his 100th wicket in minor league cricket. They're the only two to get 100 wickets in minor league cricket, doing so in back-to-back weeks. If you look at their stats, they're unbelievably similar statistics. But very different bowlers. Obviously, it's very hard to find a comparable bowler for either of them in terms of their style and the way that they play the game. We're going to get more into the South coming up probably on Monday night. We'll do a show after the two games in Atlanta, when Amon's back. You'll be joining us, Joe Hickey, on Monday. So we'll do that live show on Monday. This will be a shorter show tonight. We're only going to really talk about the East, which we've just done, and then the West. We're going to dig into the West soon. But going to the Central to set up what's going on down here, it comes down to a play-in game this Saturday. And that play-in game is going to be between the Metroplex Tracers and the Kings 11 Dallas squads. Boy, there were some exciting games this past week in the Central.
Man, I was worried about my friend Brian Walters at various times. I mean, it was just one, oh my goodness, after another for a solid 7 or 8 overs in that Kings 11 Dallas versus Xphoria Giants second game.
Oh,
I haven't seen a game with stakes like that and that kind of zany finish in ages. And the thing I was most scared about was that if Metroplex had been unable to get over the line against LSA, it would have been those two again in the qualifier. And I was like, make sure there's a defibrillator nearby for him because I'm concerned. Get a pulse oximeter on him or something, man. We got to monitor his condition because that would have been nuts.
weekend. What an exciting weekend it was in the Central. And we're going to have even more of it this coming Saturday as the Kings 11 Dallas will take on the Metroplex Tracers to determine who goes to the Super 8 along with the Chicago Kingsmen, who've secured first position, the defending champions. Now that's Central Division, my goodness. Dallas Xphoria just missing out on the play-in game. Interestingly, there's just a cluster of teams there from 5 down to 8.
Well, and it was a blast going into the final weekend, particularly because you had those three spots. And so there were 6 teams out of the 8 that were still alive going into the last weekend. 4 of them could have finished first. Metroplex had a path if the Kingsmen had gotten beaten twice by the Tigers. Maybe not super likely, but they had the best net run rate out of everybody going into the week, and so could have very well, not easily, but could have feasibly headed up number one, and so obviously could have Kings 11 or Dallas Xphoria. And yeah, it was basically what we've seen most of the season, which is them just beating the ever loving heck out of each other, and and all ending up kind of in a mishmash in the middle. And by the end, yeah, you need some no balls and super overs to decide the thing.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see these Pacific teams playing in the Super 8 in Morrisville. Uh, we know that in the Dallas venue, at the Grand Prairie venue, you need to have fast bowlers. It kind of helps. We saw last season, even East Bay looked like they were short a bowler in the final. Um, at Morrisville, at Church Street Park, well, the conditions change throughout the day. We're going to have 3 games a day. And depending on which session, you're playing in, it will depend on whether or not the fast bowlers or the spinners dominate. And so you've got to have a little bit of a variety of both. It helps to have a ton of spin bowling here in Morrisville. We know that that's true, but it also helps to have good fast bowling too. I don't think the par score is quite as high in Morrisville as it is in a Grand Prairie, but we're talking about the best versus the best, and you kind of have to throw all that out the window.
Well, it's certainly why, and because we're about to get to the teams in the West, I'm excited about kind of the roster construction of an East Bay this season or a Silicon Valley. You look at East Bay; they've had to succeed in Seattle with the likes of Vikash Mohan or Sanjay Krishnamurti or Angelo Pereira bowling big overs, but they've also got 3 lefty pacers. And so you can kind of mix and match any way you like. And Silicon Valley, very similarly, have gotten big wickets from Yusuf Sazai. They've gotten big wickets from Kamran Hotak. There are a lot of variations. It's going to be interesting to see when you're balancing bat, ball, spin, pace. I think the toss and the announcement of the 11s is going to be one of the most interesting things of the entire day for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's talk more about the West. We kind of deferred it to this point in the show. Let's talk about the West and how we got to the table that we got last weekend.
Yeah, well, you came into Friday with Seattle Thunderbolts, kind of the rabbit up top, 6-4, but you had Silicon Valley and East Bay both sitting at 5-3. Both of them knew if they win out, they go to the Super Eights. That's that, no drama whatsoever. And then you had the San Ramon Grizzlies sitting behind at 4-3. And the neat thing was they were also in that same boat. Win out, you're 7-3. You're going because you're also going to take care of East Bay and Silicon Valley in the process. And coming into the weekend, you had this San Ramon team that had defeated the Blazers the first time they faced off and took Silicon Valley down to the last ball the first time they faced off. So really exciting potential back and forth. There was a very narrow path that needed to happen for the Thunderbolts to hold on and go. We had a chance at it going into the last game that actually ended up mattering. So Friday, you had East Bay, potential banana peel game against San Diego. The Surf Riders put up a really decent total, got themselves into the mid 150s as a result largely of a big performance from Snell Patel and from Shahan Fernando putting up together 108 runs. So even with that competitive total, East Bay Blazers came out and having not been much of a power play team so far this year, they're actually the slowest run accumulators out of the teams that will likely be in the Super 8. But they were able to get a good showing for once out of Sujith Gowda in terms of both sticking around for a while and pushing the pace a little bit. And he and Sanjay Krishnamurti, by and large, took that one home. They lost 1 wicket on a little bit of a viral moment of Vijayaram Nandula kicking a line drive onto the stumps to dismiss Kavan Bandara. That one I could barely believe when I saw it, both when it happened live and on the replay. But a real good time there. And so they avoided the banana peel against San Diego, just kind of going out there and taking that run chase away.
And as you mentioned, Sujith Gowda, what a great career he's had. We'll get more into that as we go through the rest of the weekend. But what a great start for the weekend for him. And then, of course, you had one more game on Friday.
San Ramon got off to a rough start, though, with bat in hand. Aaron Johnson was gone for just 4 runs. Yusuf Zazai taking him out in the first over after conceding a single four. And Zazai very quietly has worked his way up to 20 wickets. He took two against the Grizzlies and then three more in a later game in the weekend against the Surf Riders. And he got him and then took another big important one when he dismissed Harish Kakani, who was he and Muhammad Tahir Adil, rather new arrival to San Ramon, the ones who at least got it to be something reasonably defendable, got it past that run a ball mark. Kakani with 41 runs in those middle overs to try and stitch something together. San Ramon ends up at 128 all out, and sometimes in this rivalry, it's just been necessary to get through the 20 overs. And they got to face 119 of the 120 balls and put themselves in a position where, with a good start, maybe you can get something done here. And they got the start. Ion Desai went absolutely bonkers, and 3 balls into the first innings was on a hat trick, having sent Amog Adepali and Shahan Jayasuriya to the shed. That was a major moment and felt like game on at that point.
It looks like Yuvraj Samra had some different ideas there.
Yeah, absolutely. And he had had a kind of quiet debut with the team in Seattle the prior weekend, just 2 runs off of 11 total balls faced. But he goes for 51 not out off 34, kind of what we've seen of him to this point as a youth international. And that partnership that he had after the dismissal of Jayasuriya, working alongside Dilpreet Singh Bajwa, an all-Canadian connection there. That got them close. And then when Bajwa went down, Raymond Reifer came out and continued to do what he's been doing all season with 39 off 20. He's been most of the season striking at about a run and a half a ball, but this weekend he was pretty consistently at 2 runs a ball the entire time.
So that had us with, after this game, that had us with the East Bay Blazers with a win, the Silicon Valley Strikers with a win, the Grizzlies with a loss. Did that kind of take some of the luster out of the weekend, you think?
Just a little bit. Certainly some of the insanity, especially with the Blazers. It was going to be really hard to oust them after that first victory. They had a massive advantage in net run rate. And so basically both teams now went into the week or into the Saturday games in Davis, knowing that if they win today, they're good to go. And in particular, again, the Blazers Grizzlies game, if you wanted chaos, you needed the Grizzlies again to win. If they didn't get that done, then the Silicon Valley game was basically going to decide, is it Strikers or Thunderbolts going on from that division. And so in that morning game against the Grizzlies, the Blazers just got it from all over. When it came to the bowling performance, they had 4 different bowlers take 2 wickets. Karmai was 2 for 15. Abhishek Paradkar was 2 for 20. The highest economy from anybody in the team, for heaven's sake, was 7.60. And just absolutely, again, bowled out the Grizzlies before they got to face the full complement of balls on exactly 120 and left themselves something extremely chaseable.
No doubt. I mean, I mentioned that last season the Blazers looked like maybe they didn't have enough bowling in the Super 8. But this game, they certainly had plenty of bowling. It didn't seem to be a problem whatsoever with 6 different bowlers taking wickets for East Bay Blazers, and they go on to chase this down in 17.1 overs. Uh, it looks like a pretty handily won game for East Bay. So there they go. That pretty much sealed it for them. They were in the Super 8 at that point.
Yeah, and that chase largely a bit of Gouda up front, but then and the big milestone coming for him with his 2000th run in the league. And then, as we've seen a decent bit, because as I mentioned before, they haven't been a great team in terms of power play batting. You mentioned them being a bowler short last year in the Super 8s. My concern going into this season was I felt they were a batter short in this roster. And a lot of times what they've had to deal with is Angelo Pereira or Abhishek Paradkar kind of pulling things out at the 5 or the 6 position. Opening weekend, no real problems. They got what they needed out of Sanjay. They got what they needed specifically out of Saideep Ganesh, even as Gowda was struggling a little bit at the start. But Pereira has come up pretty big, and his 30 off 22 stabilized things and made sure that didn't get too interesting for them down the stretch.
Yeah, and you mentioned Abhishek Paradkar this season, 154 runs from 131 balls. We saw a high score of 47 from him this season. There's moments where he looks very, very capable and very impressive. And we talk about the national team selection, we talk about Major League Cricket. A way for these fast bowlers to distinguish themselves from each other is to do exactly what Abhishek Parkar has been doing this season.
Yeah, he's been really valuable with the bat down the order. And oh, yeah, just on the other side of that is now leading MILC in wickets. Again, taking a lot of them at the death. This East Bay Blazers unit is actually arguably the best death bowling unit in the entire league, second best in economy and best in bowling strike rate in that phase in minor league cricket. And so that's the thing, is that if you don't get it done against them early in a chase, or if you don't get up total up on the board pretty early in a first innings, they're going to make it really hard for you down the stretch. They throw LaRue at you late on against potentially tail enders. Paradkar, I mean, heck, he started the season by taking 5 wickets in the span of 9 balls to just destroy the San Diego tail. So that is a really nasty unit when it comes down to there. And of course, at the very end of it, if they need a righty, who do they get to turn to? Oh, just the guy who bowled the 20th over of the MLC final back in July, Rushil Ugadkar, who somehow we haven't even mentioned in the midst of all this. It is a loaded bowling attack and a team I'm really excited to see in action in Morrisville.
Well, when you talk about this bowling attack, it kind of reminds me, the way you're talking about it reminds me of the 2022 Seattle Thunderbolts team,
Hmm.
where if you got into trouble in the death against them in the last 5 overs, they were a really hard team to score on. They were going to take wickets. Funny, Samhadri was out of his mind that season. Obviously, you had Shadley on the team, who was very, very good in the death as well. And of course, Harmeet, just the options that they had in the death, Shubham as well.
Hmm.
It was just so hard to do anything against them if you didn't have a good start, and it looks like this East Bay team is similar. And then going back to Gowda, 2,000 runs in his career, the first in minor league cricket to get to 200 to get to 2,000 runs for his career. So congrats to Sujit Gowda. I mean, it's about time that we see him drafted in the major league again, wouldn't you think?
I mean, I'd say he's proved his point. Like I said, he scuffled a little bit at the beginning of this season, didn't have a great Labor Day weekend, but since then has been very solid and has started to up the rate in particular, which I think has been, like I said, an important thing for this East Bay team. They haven't scored as quickly in the power play, and so trying to get to the point where they can build a total and feel comfortable when they get to the middle overs instead of constantly turning to a Saideep or an Angelo to rebuild at that point. It's been important. He has been as advertised in the 2 years since he's come back from Dallas.
So, Joe, that brings us to really the last game in the West with any type of context, and that would be the Silicon Valley Strikers versus the San Diego Surf Riders in the afternoon.
Yeah, and by that point it had gotten very simple. Now it was Silicon Valley wins, they go. Silicon Valley loses, Seattle goes, because Silicon Valley came in with a worse net run rate than Seattle already, idle, done with their season had. So if they lost, that was going to be that. They'd be finished tied, they'd lose the tiebreak. So yeah, Seattle basically becoming San Diego fans by proxy. And there wasn't a long time where they got to have much in the way of hope in this one if they were watching from up in the Pacific Northwest, because it was just the Shehan Jayasuriya show pretty much from start to finish. 111 not out off 62 balls. And the invention, 10 fours, I don't remember how many maximums, but just an incredible game from him. He did a couple. I later was told it's supposed to be called a reverse scoop. I kept calling it the pinball swat because it just kind of looked like a pinball paddle coming up. He would throw, and he did that at least 2 or 3 times. Yeah, just had us giddy in there. And so he picks up his third century in minor league. He and Chandrapal Hemraj, I believe, the only ones that have more than two in their career. Although Cheyenne Jahangir is trying to catch up to them in a darn hurry, isn't
Yeah, he
uh,
sure is.
but yeah, just incredible. And then just when they thought maybe, okay, we've gotten Dilpreet Singh Bajwa out, the partnership is broken. Raymond Reefer comes back in, and more Raymond Reefer things, 32 off 17 to help him out and to keep feeding the strike to Shahan as much as possible. I mean, it was just a masterclass of batting throughout the middle and the death.
Yeah, we didn't get much from Shahan last season. He didn't go drafted into the Major League Cricket again, or last season, not again. But he had been drafted by Seattle. They didn't retain him. He didn't get picked this last season in Major League. He comes back and has a pretty darn good minor league cricket this season. He's got a lot to prove, I think, heading into the Super 8 here. or he's going to feel like he has a lot to prove. 1,954 runs from him in his career. He's nearing that 2,000 mark. You got to think he's a favorite to get there next for minor league cricketers. But what a job from him. No surprise really from me.
Well, and the consistency from him this season has really been something else. I'm just going to read off his scores for the season: 31, 9, 28, 27, 29, 56, 39. The weird golden duck when Desai got him first ball, and then returns with that 111 not out off 62. He'd been looking for the big score and the big impact up until last weekend in Seattle when he had the innings that, if you really want to look at it, kind of ended Seattle's season because they sort of needed to sweep those games to have a really good chance of making it. That was the one game they lost, and he took it away from them. And then in a situation where maybe San Diego has a chance to grace them, nope, just absolutely takes it away from them. And then with ball in hand, Silicon Valley have no trouble defending that total. More wickets from Yusuf Zazai, more from Kamaran Hotak, who we didn't mention in the prior game, but you want to talk
Right.
about somebody who has been taking high value wickets for an absolutely rock bottom economy. That's a guy I think to watch for this Super 8s. I think that there are going to be certain times a day where that Morrisville pitch is really going to favor him, and
Mhm.
he could be absolutely rampant.
Yeah, we got Nawaz also. Raymond Reefer didn't take a wicket in this one, but he is Raymond Reefer. And yeah, this team, this Silicon Valley Strikers team, also we have another very important player coming back from the CPL.
I was about to say they've just gone 3-1 against San Ramon, San Diego, and two games against Seattle, and they did all of that without Sarab Netravalkar. That is a scary, scary team. And Sarab's even been pretty useful with the bat this season. Hit a couple of sixes in one of the games over at the Strikers Cricket Ground, I think 3 weekends ago. So I mean, the team they bat deep. Almost everybody can bowl and can get wickets for you. And when anybody's on their day, they will just wreck you.
I'll tell you what, I was a little bit excited when I saw Sora padded up in the CPL the other day. Wait, and there was a
Oh man.
moment where he might have to come in and hit the winning runs. But I think he's pretty thankful he didn't. He got 3 wickets in that final, and it was great to see Sorab and Ali Khan lifting a trophy together in one of the bigger T20 leagues in the world. And we're going to see them potentially both in the Super 8 here, depending on what happens on Saturday with the play-in game, as Ali Khan is a member of those Kings 11 squad from Dallas. So it's going to be a really fun weekend. I think a really fun week next week in the Super 8, Morrisville. You'll be there. Obviously, we're going to catch up more on what happens this weekend on Monday night live with a live show. But until then, this was a pretty good wrap up, I think, of the West. I talked about the East as well, the two divisions that are settled. What are your thoughts about what do you think these West teams' chances are in the Super 8? Who do you think of the two squads is the strongest?
Oh, I feel like Silicon Valley, if I look at their trajectory, they seem to be figuring a lot out over the course of the last couple of weeks. They, as I said, they were more successful in Seattle. East Bay really made their lives difficult with those games up against the Thunderbolts. Um, I think there's a really interesting opportunity. I love the way that attack is constructed and their batting. As I said, they've got a bunch of different folks who can fire. You've got Adipali, who's been a little under since Labor Day weekend, but he's nasty. Yuvraj Samra started to see what he's capable of. Reefer at the back end. They've hardly even needed Gary Graham. He was big in Labor Day weekend, but they've barely even had to get to him recently, and so just it's a loaded squad. East Bay, I continue to worry about a little bit on the batting side. When Gowda doesn't fire, a lot of times they've kind of had to wait until that rear guard to actually get something building. That said, they can defend almost anything, and you're never going to feel safe going into a chase against that bowling lineup. So I might give the Strikers a very slight edge just based on recent form, but it's going to be fascinating to see.
Yeah, it will be fascinating to see. Well, thanks for joining me, Joe. This was a lot of fun. Tune in, guys, for Monday night. We're gonna do a live show then, and tune in for the play-in game, the basically the we got three play-in games essentially this weekend, potentially three play-in games with the two Atlanta games. If the Fire win the first one, it's done. But if the Lightning win, we got suspense for one more day, and then of course the play-in in the Central, and then join us next week for the Super 8, and I can't wait to be there.
It's going to be brilliant, and I got happy memories of getting to do this for just a couple of days back in 2022, and now to yeah get to have a whole week of it. It's yeah, I can barely eat another bite. I think that's going to be the way I'm feeling by the end.
Yeah, yeah, I'm stoked to have it back in Morrisville. So thanks again, Joe, and thanks guys for joining us, and stay tuned for Monday.